Hi again guys, and welcome to another installment of the Beards and Cars Road Test Series. And this particular car, for those who are maybe new to the channel, does have an element of personal preference in there for me, just like the Touareg V10 did, because I do own this car. So of course I still try to be as objective as possible, and regardless of if you own or don't own a vehicle, you can still appreciate it for both its good and maybe not so good points, and I will touch on both of those things in this video. Now first of all, there's the spec. Now chances are, if you're looking at buying a Quattroporte of this age or any age, you probably know what the general spec is anyway, but for those who maybe don't, it's a Ferrari sourced engine, a 4.2 litre naturally aspirated petrol V8 with about 400 horsepower. It revs to, I believe, around 8,000 RPM or thereabouts, and it's a gorgeous engine. It's designed to be worked hard, it loves to be driven fast, of course, and as you heard from the start of the video, even with a completely stock exhaust, it sounds incredible. Now, this particular model that I own is a 2005 shape, so in my opinion, the best looking Quattroporte we've ever had, designed by Pininfarina. The particular colour is special in its own right. It was a custom order in Ferrari Mirabelle Blue, and as far as I know, it's one of the only ones, if not the only one, to be in that spec. This car was 6 figures when it was new in 2005, but here's the crucial thing. For a video like this, because I'm reviewing this car in 2019, just like the Touareg V10, it totally changes the parameters of what makes a good car in a review. Because these days, it's not some wealthy businessman who's putting down 6 figures on a brand new Maserati with a warranty. It's people like me. Somebody who's not paying anywhere near that, somebody who doesn't even have the warranty anymore, and somebody who's buying a car that already has history, already has miles, already has MOTs and certificates and stamps behind its name. So the question is, of course, should you buy one? Because just because a car is affordable doesn't mean it's a great idea, and as any of you who have followed my story with the Touareg, you know that it can have issues. Likewise with this. Of course it's Italian. Italian cars have a deserved reputation for being, well, a little temperamental, let's say, and Maserati is, of course, going to be included in that mix. Now, this particular car has a couple of false warnings on the dash, which you'll doubtless notice in the POV shots of this video, but the owner had them reset a number of times, and they're completely false. So the car thinks there's something wrong, but there actually isn't. And as soon as you drive it, you can tell that there's nothing wrong. The suspension feels fantastic, brakes work just fine, even though the car thinks they don't, and the engine is glorious. Now, put this thing into sport mode, the suspension stiffens up, gearbox becomes more responsive, opens up the valves that little bit more. Sounds fantastic. But, crucially for someone like me, I'm not driving this thing at 3-figure speeds all the time. I need it to be something that's also comfortable, and that even though I don't commute in it, I want it to be a practical car, something that's not just a pure supercar, but that's genuinely useful. That's why I love the Touareg so much as well. So of course, the obvious question is, for somebody who is in the market for something that can be used every day for sure, but is that much spicier than a, Mondeo ST or a Subaru Impreza, the more obvious choices, is this a viable option? Because of course, with a car like this, just like with a Lexus or a Touareg V10 or whatever you choose, Audi Q7, there's going to be some hidden costs in a very expensive car regardless of its age. Well, of course, for me, I haven't had to repair anything on this car yet. I haven't even had to replace anything on the car yet, but you can get a general idea of the kind of servicing costs and part costs with a simple Google search. It is a Maserati though, and it's a Ferrari engine, so of course it's not going to be like a Honda to replace stuff, but you should know that going into this. In terms of expenses that I can guarantee you'll need to invest in though, the two in particular are the tyres and the fuel, with of course the fuel being the most recurring one. Now the tyres on Quattroportes tend to go at the back first, and of course they're not going to be cheap if you buy good quality ones, Pirelli P0s, whatever you choose to buy. I haven't had to change mine yet, and of course I don't particularly want to, but eventually that'll be something that I have to do. However, fuel of course is something that you notice straight away, and I will say that even though the Touareg likes to drink, it's nothing compared to this. So that is the biggest piece of advice in terms of a warning that I would give to somebody who is looking into getting any Maserati, let alone a Quattroporte, but also advice that's good to bear in mind about any high-performance car that you plan to use every day, or at least fairly regularly. Because the Touareg could pull about 35 miles per gallon on the highway, That's good. For a 5-litre twin-turbo V10, that's pretty good. This, on the other hand, well, it's a Ferrari engine in a 2-ton car, so what do you expect? Well, it can actually pull 22, 23 miles per gallon on the motorway, which again is pretty damn impressive for a Ferrari engine vehicle. And around town, of course, it will drop to about maybe 16, 17 most of the time, at least in UK numbers. So, of course, that is something that you'll want to bear in mind. Now, currently, petrol is a little bit cheaper than diesel, so per litre you are saving some money, but overall, it doesn't work like that. Of course not. 22 miles per gallon isn't great, no matter what way you slice it, so expect to be making regular visits to the petrol station. And that is the biggest single downside that this car has over, for instance, the Touareg, as an example. Now, in terms of space and comfort, which of course is another hugely important thing from day to day, space-wise, it's fantastic. You do have to adjust the seat if you're a larger guy like I am. I'm 6'3", so of course I need the headroom. Lowering the seat as far as it can go, and then putting the back of the seat into a slightly more reclined position is perfect. The headroom is surprisingly good. I've been in plenty of sedans and saloons which did not have good headroom. This one does. In the back, it's even better because the roof actually slopes upward a little bit. At the end of the day, this is a car that's designed to chauffeur around important people, so of course it's going to be good in the back. The rear seats are comfortable, they look stunning as well. And one of the things that I don't like about a lot of performance cars is how they totally focus on the driver and then leave like next to no thought to the passengers at all, especially in the back. They're boring, it's just a bench seat or whatever it is in the back, and of course that's an exaggeration, but in this, they put just as much thought and design into those rear seats as they did into the front, and that's nice to see. Now, another thing to bear in mind, and I'm not sure if this is an official thing or if it's just mine, but there is no spare wheel in the back of this car. There's no spare wheel, no spare tyre for if you get a flat, so you do want to bear that in mind, and although there isn't one in my car, there does look like there's space for it. I did have a look in the back, and you could probably just buy a Maserati Quattroporte wheel and tyre if you wanted to and put it in there, but again, it's just so that you're informed and in the loop if that is something that you want to look into. The boot space is very good. Obviously it's no Touareg, but you can put plenty of stuff in there. You could probably put something like maybe a folded up wheelchair in there if necessary, or some large travel bag, so it's pretty decent. It's not just the classic golf club bag trunk that a supercar would usually have. In terms of ride quality, it is shockingly good. And I'm so happy to be able to say that, because one of the things that you want to look out for when you're buying a Quattroporte is that the dampers feel very hard, because when they feel hard, that's generally a strong indicator that they're going to need to be changed pretty soon. And again, it's a Maserati, so it ain't going to be cheap. This one feels great, and if it does feel good, you'll know about it immediately. It's not something that you'll have to second guess. So you want it to be nice and smooth. This one, as I said, really surprised me by how good it felt. I expected it to be less comfortable than my Volkswagen, but it was more so. It's smoother, it's surprisingly quiet with the double glazed windows, and one of the things that I love about the way the engine is designed and the way the soundproofing of the car is engineered is that while you're inside the car especially, the 2 times in which you can really hear that V8 howl is when you turn the car on, where it has a nice little blip on the revs so you can show off, and also up around 7,000 RPM it really kicks in, either in full auto or even in sport mode with or without the paddles in use. It sounds fantastic, of course in the tunnel even more so, but at that point in between, say anywhere between 30 miles an hour and 60 miles an hour without putting your foot down too much, it's actually surprisingly docile and quiet, which makes it great for motorway driving. Now of course, as I said, the fuel still isn't great, so you'll need to be able to afford that, but in terms of the car's ride quality, it's a fantastic motorway cruiser. It's very comfortable. When I drove it home after buying it, it was over a 4-hour trip, and I wasn't aching, I wasn't numb, I wasn't sore. It was perfect. In terms of interior design and quality, well, of course, it's Italian, so being a Maserati, style is never going to be an issue. It's a stunning looking car from any angle, inside and out. However, quality-wise, I was expecting maybe too much plastic, some creaks here and there, and although the car does creak a little bit, there's actually not that much plastic at all on the interior. There's a lot of leather, and again, it depends on the spec. Some of them have a lot of carbon fibre used. This one doesn't, which I'm glad, because I don't like the look of that myself. But the interior looks stunning, it feels great, as I said, it's comfortable, of course. The gearbox is great. I don't plan to use the transmission in flappy paddle mode all that often, but it's nice to know that the option is there. And in terms of the overall design, and especially the build quality and the attention to detail from an engineering side of things, which Italy isn't often thought of in a good light, I was actually very impressed by this. It's very solidly put together. It does not feel like it's going to fall apart. It doesn't feel like this little paper mache doll that looks fantastic until you get close. Not at all. It's a stunning car, which actually has a surprising level of quality to its feel. It's smooth. The handling is incredibly precise. You barely need to touch the steering wheel to make any adjustments that you want, and that's not even in sport mode. You put it in sport mode and you can easily outhandle 99% of the other cars on the road, including other exotics. And it handles like no 2-ton car should ever have any right to. It's so much fun, even at legal speeds. And in terms of stuff like insurance and tax and that kind of stuff, well, of course, I'm a younger driver. I'm 25 years old. This is only my second car, and I have no claims whatsoever. And yet, it would probably surprise you because both the insurance and the tax on this car are actually cheaper than my Touareg by quite a significant amount, and that surprised me, especially the tax. My Touareg was £570 a year, this is $340, so a pretty massive difference, and the insurance on the Touareg, for me at least, was £170 a month to $130 on this. So again, pretty huge difference over the course of a year. I'm not saying it's an ideal first car, but of course, don't let the fact that you're maybe a younger driver put you off. I could afford to get it, and even more so, funnily enough, than the Touareg. So even though it does get through more fuel, you can at least offset that a little bit by the fact that the tax and insurance is less. However, as with the Touareg, I suspect that this is a vehicle where you'll love it unless something goes wrong. I could fully see that happening, and if it does go wrong, I'll probably hate it for the day. So, of course, that can always happen, but to be fair, literally any car ever made can break down. It doesn't matter if Honda made it or if, Koenigsegg made it. Whoever made the car, something can always break. So, as long as you bear that in mind, as I often say, every car you buy is always a calculated risk, so the only significant thing that you need to decide is, would you rather be super sensible and have maybe no fun at all, or take a risk, have some fun, and maybe take a loss of some practicality, if that is even an issue at all, because with some cars, you'll never have anything go wrong. But you can never tell. We'll see overall as far as how it treats me, and of course I hope you enjoyed this review and found it beneficial if you are in the market for a Quattroporte. But overall that's it for this vid. Of course, if you're new to the channel, check out my other Beards and Cars reviews, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.